if you don't have your own story, then probably you won't really offer something new to the world because there's so many filmmakers. So it's about figuring out, I think, what your own voice is. And that sometimes comes after a lot of trial and error.
I'm Karine, and this is The Seat of the Muse, a show I started out of love for meaningful conversations and a curiosity about the stories behind what people do. Each episode is an invitation to sit down, slow down, and listen in, because sometimes a single story can shift how we view our own. This is a space for the stories we don't always hear, the ones behind the titles, the passions, the quiet turning points, and the worlds hidden in plain sight. Now let's get into today's episode. Mounia, welcome to the Seat of the Muse podcast.
Thank you.
I'm so happy that you're here and that you agreed, to be here in your busy schedule. So
no, it's my pleasure.
Really appreciate it. So you're a filmmaker who manages to blur the line between structure and emotion. You trained as an architect before becoming a director, and you've built your name on stories that explore the spaces we inhabit. You then also went global, directing for some of the BBC shows, and then more recently also went even more global on directing some of the episodes on Netflix's House of Guinness.
Yes.
And this year you also returned to acting in A Sad and Beautiful World, directed by Cyril Aris, Lebanon's Oscar submission.
Yes.
So we're going to unpack kind of all of this.
Okay.
But before starting any session, I like to ask my guest one question. Imagine we're doing this in front of an audience. Who is one person that you would like to see in your front row and why?
I think probably a younger version of myself.
Okay.
Just because I never think about that. But I like recently, Cyril was like my best friend and my creative soulmate, who is the one who gave me the courage to leave architecture and gave himself the courage to leave consulting to just follow our dreams. We were recently on a stage accepting an award together, and like someone like online, I didn't see, but he told me that someone wrote online like, what do you think the 19-year-old Cyril and Mounia would feel? Because we started together, we were kids, and I think it was the first time I never thought about this. I never thought about what that girl and that boy would have felt seeing that we did follow our dreams and we kind of made them a reality. And so that's why my answer is that now, because of that conversation we had.
Amazing. I love that. That's very inspiring. I'm sure she would be super proud if she were there.
She'd be confused maybe.
And so I love starting at the foundation. And for you, like we said, that's literally architecture. How did filmmaking first enter your life? Was it something that grew out of architecture or something that's been quietly there all along, on the side in your life?
Yes, I think definitely filmmaking was part of my life at home because my parents love cinema. My uncle, who was a pianist, my aunts, they all they love cinema, and they shared with me this love for storytelling and stories, that international cinema. So we used to sit together and watch films, and it was my way to discover other cultures, other countries, just life outside of my bubble. And also, of course, Arab cinema and Lebanese cinema, which helped me understand my own culture a bit better through the eyes of other people. I hated like bedtime stories and all these things. I just wanted to sit on a couch and watch movies. And I used to really, really love Sunday night with my mother and my father, because it was going to the cinema together and just watching a movie on the big screen. They regretted all of that when I told them I wanted to be a filmmaker. They're like, no, like it, but don't make it, because it's really scary, a scary journey to take. And I was scared because there's no big industry in Lebanon. And it is seeing, some of the people in my family who are artists, it was, of course, scary, the idea of pursuing a career that is not so safe. And so I was too scared to pursue it when I was 17, 18. So that's why I went to architecture, because I loved architecture, but it felt safer. And I thought, if the fire persists, then, okay, I would have had done the backup plan and then I can start.
Yeah. I feel like we kind of all have that side where we do something that's sure, with solid foundation, and we put the dream on the side because it's
Yes.
riskier. At
Yes.
least, you know, with
Yes.
the Lebanese parents we have.
And I don't regret it. Now I think when I'll be a mother, I'll probably like forbid my children to do this. And I
There'll be
used
no
to be
Sunday
so
night
angry with
movie.
my father. You're taking away my agency. And now like probably I'll do that to my child.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. I'll let them do whatever they want. But I understand why it's important to really be sure that you love something before committing to it.
Yeah.
And yes.
Absolutely. Do you remember what's the movie that kind of made you want to do that, or that sparked something in you?
Well, when I was a teenager, I liked movies like Pulp Fiction and all of that. I'm so over my Tarantino phase now, but I remember that like I had different phases. I had, of course, the French New Wave that I found really inspiring when I was a teenage girl, because I found that in American cinema there was always a character that was kind of perfect, that knew what they wanted, and they went on an adventure and a journey to get it. Whereas in the movies of the French New Wave, people were more confused and trying to figure out who they were. And I think that spoke to the teenager in me who was trying to figure out who she was. And I also loved that it was playing with form and blurring the lines between reality and fiction, and the city was really a character. And then I really loved also, I did love the cinema of the French New Wave, but also love big epic Hollywood comedies that really brought a lot of joy. And then I really loved Bergman, and spent a lot of time just kind of like learning about the demons that we hide inside of us, thanks to his filmmaking and his amazing ability to talk about human psychology. And then when I went to architecture school, I used to run away from a class called Résistance des matériaux, which bored me so much. I used to run away from this class, nothing to do with the teacher, just I didn't want to be an architect, so I didn't want to know Résistance des matériaux. So I used to run away, and I used to go to a class, a filmmaking class. And one of the films that they were showing that day was Close Up by Kiarostami. And that movie really, really, really like shook something in me, not just as a filmmaker, but as a person. And I remember going home that day telling my father, please, I don't want to do this anymore. I know I want to do something else. I had already started making films in the weekends with Cyril, which ended up being this web series, Beirut, I Love You. And then I watched another film in my escapes, and that was Paris, Texas by Wim Wenders. And that was the moment where I was like, okay, I want to make films. That movie gave me the courage to go for it. And also it inspired me so much. It gave me, I think it made me a romantic in a way, because I obsessed about the film. So I kept watching it over and over again, and it made me want to love in an epic way, and it kind of like opened my heart to a lot of things, and one of them was cinema.
Okay, amazing. I love that. I feel like there's a nice journey and trajectory to your movie love. But I'll have to check those movies. I actually don't know them.
Please do.
And so obviously you did kind of still study architecture throughout.
Yes.
What is something that you carry with you today on set, maybe from what you learned? Because I guess there are similarities to both worlds.
One of the most important answers that I never answer when I'm asked this question is that I met my best friend in architecture school, Tara.
Okay.
And my relationship with her has shaped a lot of things in my life, because I take friendship very seriously. I'm quoting a movie right now, but Homer. But I take friendship very seriously, and I think a great friendship can really help you grow as a person and as an artist. And our relationship, I think, helped us both grow creatively, because we inspired each other. Like, she's the person I love receiving feedback from, because it's not the feedback of a filmmaker, it's the feedback of a woman, and with her eye. So my best friend came out of those architecture years, and a lot of other beautiful friendships. But I would say that there's so much in common between architecture and cinema. Both of them are a mise en scène of life, and I think both of them require a lot of discipline and a lot of people management and also self-management, and it also gave me an ability to understand how space can tell a story, when I'm making a film and I'm telling a story or writing one of the most important things for me is, okay, what is the space of this character? And then when I'm shooting, how is the character inhabiting the space or inhabited by the space? And so space and the environment became like a very important element of my filmmaking and a priority for me. When I write a story, I write the space first.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I think there's a lot of visualization. Like
Of course.
both of my parents are architects,
Yes.
and I see how like I would have loved to become an architect, but I've always find it hard to imagine an empty space coming together. I
Yes.
like the finished product.
Yes.
So it's very nice, and I totally see the resemblance in both like parts.
And I imagine what your parents probably do is, when you have an empty space, what starts populating the space is the needs of the human beings who are going to be in that space. And that's the same in cinema. It's the character that inhabits the space should define how the space looks.
Yes, I agree. And so before we get into a bit, your films, I want to pause on something a bit fundamental, because for people listening who might not really know, and including myself, because it's a world so foreign to me, what exactly does a director, in a movie do? To what is your like scope of, responsibilities?
Yes.
I guess pre, during, post, there's a lot, but I think you can maybe like the most
Of course.
important things.
Well, I'm a writer-director, so I also write. Sometimes I work with people who write. So, for example, on House of Guinness, the scripts of Stephen Knight were written by Stephen Knight. And then your role as a director, whether you've written the script or not, is to translate the script into images. So, a lot of the tasks so you're imagining, let's say a character enters a room. Mm-hmm. You are responsible for choosing that character. So that's casting. You work with a casting director. You see a lot of actors, and then you make a decision on who is the best person to do that. Then you work with that actor. Then on set, you give him directions and you collaborate with him. And obviously the actor contributes a lot. And yes, you say action and cut, but what happens between the action and the cut is the work with the actor, the direction, let's try it that way. Oh, actually do it this way. And sometimes you direct an actor through the other actor, because acting is reacting. You also design the space with the production designer. So you think, okay, how should the space, the tone, it's world building. So going back to prep, it's casting the actors, it's designing the world, it's imagining with your cinematographer how to film the world. So what visual language is it going to be? Is it a language where you're claustrophobic or you're not, or how do you go between one and the other? So it's designing the visual language. That means the space, the architecture of the space, the costumes with the costume designer, of course. It's being like the chef d'orchestre of all these elements of the mise en scène, which involve the space, the textures, the acting, the actor, and then later, once you're done shooting, and when you're shooting, you're basically directing the actors and collaborating with the team and giving them the guidance. And after that, you go into editing. So it's the third moment of the writing. Mm-hmm. I think there's writing, and then there's the directing on set. And then the third moment where you're writing is in the editing, where you have all these rushes and they're all amazing, but you have to put them together and create a rhythm that matches your initial vision. And how you put two shots together changes everything. And that's, every frame is a choice. And then there's the less exciting part, which is the promotioning and the marketing and the, repeating the same thing a million times. But some of it is fun, and some of it is, can I please go back to the creative part?
I love that. And so do you remember your very first day on set as a director and what it felt like?
Oh my God, not at all. Yes, actually I do. Well, all of my childhood, my gift for my friends was films. So I had this VHS camera, and I would, like, for the birthday gifts for my families and my friends were stories that I would film. And so I spent a lot of time with a camera and alone when I was a kid. And then it was usually my way of expressing myself. But my first day on set was when Cyril and so when I was a teenager, I was a bit shy and a bit like, I had a phase where I went really inward during the divorce of my parents. I kind of like went inward. Around that time, my parents suggested that I take acting classes so that I can kind of like get in
Express.
touch with myself and express myself a bit more. So I started doing that. I hated it at first. I used to hide in the back so they wouldn't select me. But then I fell in love with that world. And in that place called Atelier Tréteau Théâtre that Michel Malik was the director of, I met Cyril Aris, who was same thing, you know, exploring his passion for that world while being a consultant. And we met and we both discussed that we were both frustrated that we weren't following that dream. Said, oh, let's make a film together. We know nothing about film. You have a VHS, I have a microphone. Like, we don't know what that is. It'll be our first film school. So let's just write something. And at the time we had just seen Amélie Poulain.
Okay.
So like, oh, let's do like an homage to Amélie Poulain, but to Beirut. So it's like two characters' love declaration to Beirut, love and hate declaration to Beirut. We'll be in it. We'll co-write. We'll co-direct. Just because
You'll do
we're just
everything.
trying to play. And that was my first day on set. It was Cyril and I in front of the camera, behind the camera, writing, directing, and just playing and getting to discover that art form by just being like creative soulmates and just playing around. It was so fun. It was so playful. Probably now that I'm in the industry, I've lost a bit of that complete freedom, but I always remember that phase to remember how important it is to continue playing, because sadly it's a thing where if you don't love it and you don't feel passionate about it, the result won't be good. So it's important to know how to keep connected to that childlike playfulness.
No, that totally makes sense. And do you ever kind of like sit and rewatch those earlier movies you've done?
The couple of times I rewatched that first short film, Beirut, I Love You, I Love You Not, of course I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this is online. How can we remove it? But actually, like now that I have more distance from it, I'm really proud of it, because it's two people saying, we like something, let's try it. And it's very endearing, and it reminds me of that little flame that Cyril gave me that made me kind of jump in a way. And we put it online for our friends to watch, and it went viral, and LBC picked it up and turned it into a web series, and that started my career in a way. So when I applied to Columbia University, they didn't care about my architecture projects. They cared about that web series and that short film, and that's what got me into the film school. Not the museums I designed, though they contributed to my growth, of course.
No, of course. And so for filmmakers listening who are just starting this unpredictable road, what is something you wish you'd understood at that point, maybe in your career, and something you think is good for them to know?
I think finding your people, finding people who give you the courage to, try things out, and they could be your comfort zone and your safe space and your family, and trigger things in you, the positive trigger. I also understand that life can sometimes be lonely, and sometimes you cannot find your people because they're simply not there. In this case, I think it's about trying to figure out who you want to be as a filmmaker, trying to find your story, and try to read a lot, watch a lot, like maybe do workshops, try to place yourself in environments where you'll meet people who you can learn from and who can help you figure out what story you want to tell as a filmmaker. And obviously you can't know that right away, but if you don't have your own story, then probably you won't really, offer something new to the world, because there's so many filmmakers. So it's about figuring out, I think, what your own voice is. And that sometimes comes after a lot of trial and error, and, because sometimes you know something here, but you don't know how to translate it in images. And for me, what helped me learn that is going to film school. But before that, I was trying it with my own film school. So there's many ways to do it. I think it's about the trial and error thing.
Yeah, no, definitely. And so obviously, you've done some movies that hit very close to home and are centered around the stories of Beirut, Lebanon. And then you've also done things for the BBC with, Boiling Point, The Responder. What is the difference, in your opinion, and how you feel about it, in directing movies that are kind of your own story, and then the others that are far away from your own, different history?
I find it hard to do a good job, or at least attempt to do a good job, if I don't try to make something feel personal to me. Like at some point I did commercials and things like that, but I just quickly realized I was slowly dying inside by doing those things. I enjoyed more doing fashion films because it was a collaboration with another artist. Like Sandra Mansour saw my short film Submarine, which was about the garbage crisis, and came to me and said, I'm fascinated by the world of cinema. I've never done anything like that. I just love the idea of two artists that come from different worlds creating something together. And she saw that in Submarine there was an element of surrealism, and she was designing a collection that was about the subconscious and dreams. So we collaborated together, and that started, in a way, a path in fashion films, which I never expected. But that came from a woman saying, let's play together. But that was not your question. So what I was trying to say is that every time I do something, I try to make it personal to me. So when I did this with Sandra, I was like, okay, I want to try to think about dreams I've had, or paintings, whether it's Magritte or Dali, or painters that, or Delvaux, that work with the element of surrealism, things that stimulate me. And therefore it felt like I wasn't making a fashion film for a brand, but I was exploring sides of that interest me and that I'm curious about, and learning from the mind of this other great person. When I write films that are set in Lebanon, that absolutely comes naturally. They come from my gut. But when I do things like a fashion film or House of Guinness, I'm always thinking, how can I make it mine? In House of Guinness, there's a shared history of anti-colonialism between Lebanon and Ireland. There are stories in the love dynamics between certain characters where we've all had heartbreak. We've all felt possessive. We all have felt like we're hesitant between, not we've all, like I've been in a situation where I didn't know which path to take in my romantic life. Or I've been in a situation where I felt really insecure in moments, or really like under a lot of pressure, or I felt like the element of a dysfunctional family. So I think every time I do something, I think, can I find a personal connection to something in that? And if I can, whether it's an interest in a topic or something I've experienced, then I'm like, okay, then I can invest in it. When I receive a script where I feel like that has nothing to do with me, then usually I go back saying I'm not the right person for it.
Okay.
Because if I'm not passionate about it, and if I don't find that gut link, I will not do a good job.
Okay. Has it happened recently that you've kind of rejected a script because of that? Okay.
Yes, of course. And I'm always honest about, like, when I receive a script and I feel like I don't find a personal connection, I go back saying, this is an amazing story. I don't think I'm the right person to tell it, because someone else who has a stronger connection to it would be better for it.
Yeah. Okay. No, I really like that, because you know your own, I guess, not really values, but you know what you can bring to something, and you know whether it will be the right fit or not. And that's very powerful. And so what did you also learn from going from doing indie movies your own, to going in a higher, like faster paced environment of, doing more like global television things?
It happened to me very accidentally, because I was always the person who said, I just want to do films. I'm not interested in TV. It's a thing that I said when I was younger, and then then I discovered TV shows that I thought were doing something interesting, whether it's The Sopranos or other like shorter formats. I started seeing how TV can be a great avenue to spend more time with characters. But TV landed on me very unexpectedly. I was living in New York. I was teaching at that time, writing my second feature after Costa Brava. And Phil Berentini and Stephen Graham and Hannah Walters, who have made Adolescence, for example, and who have made Boiling Point, a movie, watched Costa Brava at the London Film Festival or somewhere, I don't know, through my UK agents, and reached out to me saying, we've made a film called Boiling Point, and it's been commissioned to be a mini-series. And Phil Berentini, the director of the film, would like to direct the first half, but he would like a filmmaker from the film world to direct the second half, because he's not a TV director, and he wants someone who speaks the same language and he can creatively be collaborating with and create a little family together. so my agent sent me the scripts. I read them. I really liked what it was saying, because there's something about the high-end restaurant industry where in a kitchen you have people for so many different backgrounds brushing like shoulders and coexisting in that space. And there's this thing between like this mask between the public, the private, the kitchen, the restaurant. And there's something so similar to the film industry, to being on a set, or just it felt like it was another exploration of dysfunctional families and mental health and the taboo that is, but in the world of the kitchen. And I love the scripts, and I love the Stephen Graham, of course, and I love, the work of this team. So I met with them, and as soon as the meeting started, I thought I really want to spend a few months with those people. They're brilliant, they're excited, and they're excited about working together. And Phil is excited because two directors never worked together. So we were both really excited to do that. So I went to the UK, shot this show, and it started something for me, because the commissioner of that show loved what I did on that show. So she came back to me saying, would you read the scripts of The Responder, the show with Martin Freeman? And then I did that. And then after that, I met with the team at Kudos and Netflix in London. And then I ended up doing House of Guinness. So everything was a step, Submarine, my short film, was a step towards, it took me to Cannes and to Toronto, and that opened the doors for Costa Brava, my feature film. That led to that. So yeah, every single thing led to something. And it all started with Cyril telling me we should jump and do it.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you also listened to it. And I see that he also listened to his own advice. So that is great. I have so many questions coming up from all of this, but I guess maybe one, and then we can focus on just the another part. So as you mentioned, you've had your films premiere in front of bigger audience, Toronto, Seville, etc. How does it feel to have your story belong to the public and be, visible to everyone?
It's a very scary experience, because, you make a film and you make it with an amazing team that becomes like your family. It's a bit like Colonie de Vacances, It's like summer camp making a film. It's so intense. It's so, powerful and intimate, at least the sets I like to create and be around. And then you go in the edit room, and it's again, you're just with two other people now. And then suddenly you have to put it out. And there's always a moment where you feel like the magic dies a little bit at the moment where the movie is no longer your little baby, but it's out in the world. But then quickly you remember, that's why we do this, to share it with the world and to communicate, to ask questions and to communicate. And there's always the fear of how that will feel. But then when you're with the audience, sharing it, having a conversation with the audience, then you remember why it's so special and why you shouldn't be doing it just in your own space, and that it's an amazing way to connect. And I don't believe art can change the world, because the world has become quite like a scary place. I don't know what will save it. Certainly not my films, but in my opinion. But I think that films and art can heal people and can help people ask themselves questions and connect to others and maybe understand other people's perspective. Like for me, like cinema taught me empathy, because it showed me, especially the type of films that I would watch, it showed me flawed people and how they deserved love as well. And I think that made me grow as a person, and I'm just one person in this world. So I really believe that cinema can help ask questions and can help people understand people a bit better.
Yeah.
If they want to.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I think you can really tell a lot about someone by asking what their favorite movies are.
Yeah.
Because it reveals things about them.
It's true.
I'm not going to ask what's your favorite movie.
I think it's Paris, Texas. It's such a cheesy answer, but it is the truth. And something really nice happened a couple of years ago. When I was in Colombia, we used to be invited to those screenings, like the NBR screenings. And at some point, there was a screening of a documentary that has been Wenders directed, and I met him there. And for me, it's like, I love him as a filmmaker, and I've met in my work environment people that I've looked up to growing up, but meeting someone isn't like I care about watching their films, really. Like, having a great conversation with them is nice, but what I really care about is spending time alone with their work. But a couple of years ago, I had just gotten this tattoo, which is Travis is the character in Paris, Texas.
Okay.
And
love that.
I had like the plaster over it, and I was going to the Berlin Film Festival because I was a mentor at the Berlinale Talents, and I was on the phone with my partner at the time, and I told him, I think Wim Wenders is at the same gate as me going from London to Berlin. And he's like, show him your tattoo. I was like, no, I won't. And then I get into the airplane, and I'm very, very scared of flying since the Beirut explosion. So it's a struggle for me, the 15 minutes before, the 15 minutes during, and then it's fine. But everyone, now it's much better, but everyone knew that about me at the time. So my friends used to call me to wish me a safe flight, and I used to send very loving messages before I took off in case it's my last. It's silly now because I'm over that bit. But anyway, so I get on the flight, and I was a bit clumsy, so I dropped something, and Wim Wenders was right next to me, and I turned to him, and he helps me like pick up the bag, and I was like, okay.
Now's my chance.
And I tell him, I just want to tell you, but that I'm a filmmaker, and Paris, Texas gave me the courage to leave architecture and leave everything to be a filmmaker, and it also gave me the courage to love in a bit of an unfiltered way, a courage I may have lost along the way, but And he was like, oh my God, that's so nice to hear. And he asked me about my work, and we had a conversation. We spoke about the fact that we had already met in New York a while ago. And then I showed him the tattoo, and he was like, no way, Harry Dean, that's the name of the actor who had died a couple of years before. So he asked to take pictures of it. And he's like, can I show it to my friends? It's such a nice tattoo. So we took a nice selfie together, and I sent the selfie to my friend saying, I think that flight will be safe. Yeah. So that I don't really care about meeting people that I admire, but that encounter felt nice because it was around a time where I needed a reminder of why I do what I do, and that was very special.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. It's a flight you won't forget.
Yeah.
And so I want to talk a bit about maybe House of Guinness, because that's
Yes.
more topical. Everyone's, watching it. I've watched it. And to be honest, I'm not saying this because it's you, but the last episode, is the first time I think when I watch a show, I am on the edge of my seat. And when it ended, I was like, no, we have a problem.
It's
It
funny
cannot
because
end this way.
all my friends who watched it texted me like, you make a show, and your friends kind of forget that, oh, you're their friend who made the show, and so they just text me, what the fuck? Sorry, can I
It's
say
fine.
that? So all my friends, instead of texting me, it was so nice to watch your work,
Yeah.
congrats, they all texted me, you have to tell us what's going to. It's like suddenly they were watching a show, and I was not their friend anymore. They were just angry with me about the cliffhanger.
Yeah.
And everyone started calling me, telling me, you know who's gonna die, you know what's gonna happen. I'm like, I promise you, I don't. And even if I did, I wouldn't
You
tell
wouldn't
you.
tell, yeah.
But I don't. And it's funny because that scene, which is the most tense scene of the episode, was actually like the least tense to shoot, because
Okay.
for 3 days you're in this big hall. Poor Anthony Boyle, who plays Arthur Guinness, is doing his speech, take after take after take, and I'm having to shoot, obviously, the perspective of each character. And all of the tension was obviously built with Joe Saade, the cinematographer, and with Ben, the editor, because practically the rushes we had is people sitting. They're all sitting behind the people in the crowd, and then Cochrane coming and preparing the shoot. But for 3 days, it was him doing the speech and people behind him, and it's the invisible tension you're creating.
Yes.
So that tension was really built in the making and in the editing.
Okay.
But shooting it, if you ask all the cast, they were just sitting for 3 days on this chair, looking around, anxious. But yes, it was a very, very exciting show to shoot. Being in the world of the 1800s, talking about dysfunctional families, but in a complete other time, but doing it in a way that was meant to feel modern as well, because of that Stephen Knight thing of like mixing the tones of future, past, and working with such an incredible cast of actors. Like you're looking at the monitor and you're like, okay, we're already here. What can we do to make it more exciting? But sometimes I would not want to cut. I was just so excited by
Yeah.
what I was watching,
Yeah.
because each of them had something to propose and made the characters that I read on script grow. But yes, it was a nice, very, very nice experience.
Is it difficult sometimes to say cut in a scene?
When you're really moved by something and you want to see what not cutting does to the actors, it creates magic. You want to, as a director, you want to create space for accidents and for the unexpected, and sometimes not cutting. It's like, have you seen the movie The Graduate? At the end of The Graduate, Dustin Hoffman's character, who just runs away. That's a spoiler if you haven't seen it, but there's a couple who just runs away and decides to be together, and they're sitting on the bus and they're excited and they're happy, and they're young people in love, and the director didn't cut and kept rolling and kept rolling, and suddenly their expression went from joy to confusion to a bit of a what now, and all of that look he kept, and that's the ending of the movie. And it added so much more complexity to the choice of the characters, and that movie is now famous for that ending, which came from the director being open to seeing what came out of that wait. And yeah, so on House of Guinness, and always, I like to create accidents and all of that, and I like to give the actors the opportunity to play, because there's the dialogue and then there's the space between the dialogue and that subtext, and that's really exciting.
And so how does it work when you're starting to direct something that's already, been started? I didn't even know actually that you could just, direct a few episodes out of a full series, because I feel like it can change the way the story is told, but you actually don't see it. I had to watch the ending, the credits, to know which episodes you actually did.
I just directed a show in which I directed all 6 episodes. And of course, you're designing the whole language from scratch. So when you don't do that and you're doing the last 3, it's so important to know that you really get along with the other director, and that the visual language that is built by the two of you, and by the production designer and the costume designer and all of that, has continuity. If I had met with Tom in the beginning when I was pitching for the project, and I had realized that him and I didn't get along creatively, I wouldn't have done it, because then I would have had to follow something I don't like. So we agreed, him and I, that he would create his own language and I would create my own language, but under the same umbrella. And that is created by Richard Bullock, the production designer, Edward Gibbon, the costume designer. So what would be in common is the visual language of the show in terms of the sets, the costumes, the actors. And then Tom and I would have freedom to explore differently within that. I think he maybe cuts more and he has a rhythm that's a bit more dynamic. And whereas in my episodes, the scripts justified going a bit darker and slower, and also going maybe a bit more subjective to certain characters, because as the script went on, you would go deeper into the inner world of the character. So Tom and I agreed that that language could evolve thanks to the scripts evolving in that direction, and maybe that's why it felt seamless.
Okay, yeah.
To you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so what is your favorite scene from the ones you did?
One of the scenes that I love the most is a scene with Danielle and Anthony, Arthur and Olivia, after she has an abortion, and they're having dinner and he's eating that thing quite aggressively.
Yeah.
And everything in that scene is about what's not being said. And what I love about that relationship is that obviously Arthur is gay, but he wants a wife. And obviously they love each other, but in a different way than a normal heterosexual couple. They're in love with each other in a different way, and their sexuality doesn't meet. But I like the complexity of that relationship, and also I love how both of them are in a power trip in that scene, but they're both so broken, and I love how everything in that scene is about what's not being said.
Yeah.
And yeah, I like that it's a moment where Arthur's darkness starts growing, and she starts deciding that she doesn't want to be in a relationship in which she can't decide something so important about her own body. So I yeah, and then I love that after that he tells her, go meet the man you love, and and she goes and she
Yes.
goes with James. And I don't know, I love that scene. I love that in that scene I was able to shoot it in a way where I was imprisoning the characters to the space. And Joe Saade is a Lebanese cinematographer that shot Submarine, my short film, Costa Brava, my feature film. So being able to bring someone from home into this big production made it less scary, and also made me, because he reads my mind and I read his mind. So I would just tell him, this is how I want the scene to feel, and he would translate that into images. And we had a wall of mood boards, and we rewatched a lot of movies of Jane Campion, or like looked at a lot of paintings, Delvaux and all these people, just to remember, how can we trap someone in such a big space?
Yeah.
Because we're not used to filming in a space where it's like, oh my God, that room is huge.
Yeah.
The dining table is 70 meters.
Yeah.
You know?
And so do you feel like, I did mention that you are also an actress, and more recently in the movie of Cyril. Do you feel like being an actress makes you a better director and vice versa?
Yeah, I don't see myself as an actress. I see myself as a director who, if another director comes to me with a script in which I have a connection with the character, and if I feel I can learn from that director, then I would do it as an exception to the rule. But I definitely don't see myself as an actress. But acting in Cyril's movie taught me a lot about acting, about the vulnerability of being in that position, about the trust that it takes for an actor, because they have to relinquish control. Whatever they do, they don't know where it will be taken. And I love the fact that I didn't have to be the person answering all the questions every day, and also being able to focus on one thing, which was this character, Yasmina. And like I learned a lot from the process of relinquishing control for the course of 6 weeks, because as a director, you need to make every decision, and you get used to that control. Whereas as an actress, I let go of that, and I learned a lot through the acceptance of the uncertainty, which I'm normally not very good at. Since that experience, I feel like I'm now more open to uncertainty and less scared of the chaos.
Okay. Yeah, because I was going to ask as well, because you're first and foremost obviously a director, are you able to switch your brain off when you're asked to, act?
It took me 3 days, and a few little moments where, like, I was like, oof, it's hard. And then after that, I really let go. And that's thanks to Cyril and his team giving me the space to do that. But it definitely took me a few days to let go. And when I did, I was so happy. Every morning when Mona, one of the people in the production team, would pick me up, I would be so excited to get to set, to kind of like lose myself and allow myself to feel through another person. Yeah. Because as a director, you have to put your feelings to the side and take care of other people's feelings. And acting allowed me to nurture my own a little bit. It sounds a bit like silly and all of that, but I think as a person, I had spent a few years repressing my own feelings. So I kind of needed that, because then I got in touch with those feelings again, and it made me want to write again as a director.
Okay. It's beautiful, because then you're working on yourself.
Yes. And also watching that team, like Cyril and his team, create, it's like you're a fly on the wall on the set of someone else. You're shooting in your favorite place in the world, Beirut. And I really needed, after spending a lot of months in TV, to be back on an independent film in my home country. I needed that, because that's why I do it,
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. And I think that's a beautiful way to end this.
Yes.
I would love to ask so many more questions, but we're stuck on time. So thank you so much, Mounia, for being here with me.
No, I have to ask you a question.
If you want. We can do this offline. But thank you so much. It was a pleasure to have you. I really had a great time and learning all of that. I think my last question is there a season 2 to House of Guinness? I need to know.
Honestly, I don't know.
I
mean, obviously, everyone at Netflix and the cast and the crew, we all love the show so much. But those decisions are based on so many things that have nothing to do with us. So I don't know.
Okay. We need people to watch it so that there's more viewers, and then...
I mean, a lot of people have been watching it, and it's like that is not the... It's just, it's an information that I don't know. So maybe in a few days we'll know.
Okay.
But I think it's an amazing show, and I was so proud to be part of it. And regardless of where it goes, I feel really grateful for
Yeah.
it.
No, definitely, I'm
Yeah.
sure. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You've been listening to The Seat of the Muse, and I'm so grateful you chose to spend this time with me. If something stirred you today, a thought, a feeling, a question, I'd love for you to subscribe and follow on your favorite platform, leave a review, and even share this episode with a friend. Your support truly fuels this space and helps invite more voices to sit down with me. Until next time, stay curious.